My name is Aussie Marcel, the most luscious locks on YouTube, and in today's video, we're going to be covering a men's fragrance classic, Brut, the Splash On edition. This isn't the EDT, but the similarities are pretty obvious. This one might be a touch weaker, but for the most part, it still smells exactly the same. Now, the Brut original that you can find as an EDT, I think it's Brut 33, that one tends to be a touch stronger and it'll last a little longer on your skin as well. But for the most part, this is the classic Brut that you've probably seen and you've probably owned before. Out of the bottle, it has a very synthetic quality to it. On my skin though, it smells much more natural, and a lot of the florals that are actually in this come through pretty heavily. I put this on about 15 minutes ago. I just dabbed a little bit and rubbed it in. One of the most prominent, or two of the most prominent notes I get from this are lavender and oak moss. So initially it is an aromatic fragrance, but there is a touch of earthiness as well, and that comes from the anise and the oak moss. The anise is up front, and it does tend to fade a little bit with time, but for the most part, I would say that this is one of those classic masculine scents. Chances are that you've smelled this before, but in the form of the deodorant spray. One of my best friends in high school actually wore the deodorant of Brut, and for that reason, every time I smell it, it just reminds me of him. Half of my appreciation for the fragrance does come from nostalgia, but in saying that, I'm sure a lot of people that smell Brut have a similar sort of nostalgia to it. Maybe they have a grandfather that wore this over Old Spice, for example. I do have Old Spice as well, but the two smell so different. I know you can splash them both on, or you can find the EDT of them. It doesn't really matter. The scent profiles are completely different, and it's, apart from the fact that you can splash them, it's hard to compare the two. I'm just going to go ahead and read the listed notes for you. In the top, we have anise, lavender, basil, bergamot, and lemon. In the mid, we have geranium, ylang ylang, and jasmine. And in the base, we have oak moss, vetiver, tonka bean, patchouli, vanilla, and sandalwood. Of the notes that this says it has, I get the anise, the lavender, the oak moss, a touch of the vetiver, and patchouli. But it is a fresh fragrance. My partner says that it actually smells a little bit like baby wipes or baby powder. I do get that impression once it's dried down a little bit, but in the opening it's too punchy to my nose. It doesn't come across like that at all, but at the end of the day, that's her opinion, and I totally respect it. These Brut fragrances, especially the original, I don't know if I would recommend to somebody that isn't familiar with the fragrance itself, or hasn't worn the deodorant at least, just because it is one of those classic vintage masculine sort of scents. It's not overly sweet. It doesn't have a huge amount of tonka in it. I know younger people nowadays tend to gravitate towards sweeter fragrances. There is a touch of sweetness in this. It's definitely not bitter or anything like that, but I do think it kind of leans way more vintage than what they'd probably be comfortable wearing, at least at this stage in their life. In saying that though, they might enjoy it, you might enjoy it, but approach this one a little cautiously. You can pick up this bottle for $10 Australian. For that price, it's an absolute steal. It's a men's fragrance classic, well worth the cost of $10. However, if you're a little younger and you're looking to get into men's fragrances in particular, perhaps buy the deodorant first or the roll-on, because you can get them on special for $2.50, $3, somewhere around there. And the scent profile for those is 95% what this is. It's just that this will last a little longer. Now, longevity wise, this lasts about 3 to 4 hours on my skin if I apply a fair bit. What do I consider a fair bit of Brut? A couple of splashes, and It's one of those ones where you can reapply it every couple of hours and it's not gonna be super overpowering. I mean, don't go and dump the entire bottle on your skin. That's not, you know, you're gonna waste money and it's gonna smell terrible that way. But, you know, a little goes a long way. A few splashes here or there, it's not gonna hurt anyone. And you never know, you might get some compliments on it, because I found that people actually, particularly people over the age of like 25, both men and women, they really like the vintage smelling fragrances. Like, I've gotten compliments on my Paco Rabanne Classic quite a few times, and that is what, in my mind at least, is like a very rich vintage smelling fragrance. So this is sort of in that ballpark, and you never know, for the price that you pay, it's worth trying out. Anyway, that's about all my thoughts on Brut for the time being. I may do a more comprehensive review and comparison with similar fragrances. Actually, I kind of want to do like a comparison video between this and Old Spice. Keep an eye out for that one. Have you ever worn Brut before? Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And until my next video, I'm Aussie Marcel, the most luscious locks on YouTube. I'll catch you around.